Okay, all right. Okay, make sure I'll get the link here for so I'll be able to put on my Facebook page. All right, got that done. Okay, got that. Hey, Jinx, how you doing? All right, I got that posted on my YouTube channel. Um, my Facebook and stuff. So let me make sure everybody else gets it. Okay, I heard Honey's on a um in jail, Facebook jail. Facebook's getting really carried away and stuff. So time people get here. I see nobody the evil people really like the videos I did out there at the trail yesterday. Since they don't want to hear the truth and stuff, but they all want to hear the lies. That's all right. Comes time. Cool, Jinx. Cool. Um, let's see if I put on my Discord. Uh, Discord. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm muting my Discord. So people can hear me on Discord and stuff. I don't have that. Share it on mine on Discord. I know I used to be able to do something. Okay, so we got here. It's sad people are not accepting the truth. Yeah, I know, ain't it? Jinx. Well, thanks. Yeah, people need to accept it, but no, they put out the lies and stuff. How many people I got? It says 2 watching. I don't know what happened to Jason. Can't get a hold of him and stuff. I don't know what's going on with Jason yet. Yeah, I sent a message to his grandmother. Me too. I sent a message to his grandmother to see um, what's going on. I told her, well, he's not answering his phone or anything, because I know he was. He said every time he gets blood drawn, makes him tired. Every time he goes to the doctor, but I haven't heard from his grandmother yet. I told her, well, is something wrong with his phone or anything like that? Jinx. So I don't know. Well, I'm going to start Jinx and go from there. I might come in. All right, Act 2, Lone Star Lawmen. The state police had been organized and McNally had been placed on the force. So consolation with friends, it was the thought best that I should have leave. John Wesley Hardin. Walking Whiskey Keg. That's chapter 21. Both Linder, Harvey McNally parents were born in Ireland. Lowell is known about his mother, Catherine Killian. Other than that, she was 15 when she married in 1830. Her husband, 5 years older, was Elan McNally of County Down. By 1833, the young couple had two children: Owen, the father of Elisa name, and Peter, and they were on the move to America. One has to admire the pluck of um Elon McNally, being all of 23 and uprooting his 13-year-old wife and two children, one infant, and taking them across the Atlantic Ocean. Or maybe it was desperate gambling to escape starvation. Of 24 states in the United States, in 1833, the McNallys wind up in Virginia raising sheep in the Brooke County in the northwestern part of the state. Apparently, much effect was put into raising children too. The parents, Elin and Catherine, had six more of them. The third one, born on March 12th, 1844, named Linder, remarkable for that time. Of 8 McNally offspring surviving childhood, through the fourth oldest, Thomas, died at 16 of age. Less remarkable at the time of restlessness exploring America was that some of the children, when old enough, went seeking new places to live and raise their own family. Peter, for example, after being married, trekked with his wife to Missouri. After 2 years, they returned with their firstborn. The next trip Peter took would have an impact on his equally restless young brother. The Virginia McNallys knew Chauncey Shepherd was one of the many men who, before the Civil War, was curious about the very large state of Texas. When he traveled there to find out it for himself, Shepherd was accompanied by Peter McNally. Upon their return, they extol the beauty of the land and the potential. Peter had been so convinced that he had purchased a parcel near Braham, the seat of Washington County, and 90 miles east of Austin. Now, Linder was at least 12 years old when Peter bought the property and began processing of family members to what the new owner deemed the McNallys plantation. There may have been another reason for Peter keen interest in Texas: to save his young brother's life. Linder, before even entering his teenage years, exhibit symptoms in tuberculosis. There was no cure for so-called white plague. In 1850, the physician could only suggest a warm, dry climate like the one available in Washington County. As his health improved, Lee McNally helped with his family sheep raising business and tend the flock of the neighbors. Travis Burton, his father, John Burton, one of the first angles of settlements in Texas, had helped found the city of Austin and was namesake of the community being established near the McNally's plantation. It seems likely that Lee would carve out his own farm, be married, and raise a family there. However, as the new decade took hold, talk of war against the northern state was prevented. When Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in April 1861, Lee McNally had just turned 17 in August of that year, claiming to be 18, enlisted in a company led by Captain George Washington Campbell in the 5th Texas Cavalry. He also enlisted his horse. He bought his own gun and ammunition. Before long, the young soldier would be marching in the Confederate Army commanded by Henry Hopkins Sibley. Born in Natchez, Natchez in 1861, Sibley had some military in him, his grandfather having served as a surgeon in the Revolutionary War. At the age of 17, the younger Sybil was admitted in the United States Army Military Academy at West Point, and upon graduation, he was commissioned second lieutenant. He saw quite a bit of action in the 1840s, first against the Seminole Indians in Florida, then on frontier duty in Texas, and then the Mexican-American War in 1850. Sybil was put back on frontier duty in Texas, where he would remain for 5 years. He apparently had enough time on his hands to be an inventor, creating what was supposedly become known as Sybil tent, which was widely used by the Union during the Civil War. This design was adopted by Great Britain military. He also invented the Sybil tent stove, which the United States Army used in the early years of World War II. From Texas, Sybil went from the frying pan into fire, Kansas. In the mid 1850s, the territory was known as Bleeding Kansas because of the violence between pro and anti slavery supporters. Fortunately for Sybil, in 1857, he was sent out west to participate in Utah war against the Mormons. And then 1861, he saw service in the New Mexico. After the outbreak of the Civil War, the native Southern resigned from the Army to join the new Confederate state of the United States. On the surface, it would seem that Sybil was a good officer for the Confederacy. However, his career had been troubled by the taste of the spirit. The dependence was such an open secret that the nickname attached to him, Walking Whiskey Keg. Still, he was otherwise a smart, experienced military man with plans. Sybil secured a sit-down with Jefferson Davis, now President of the Confederate States of America, outlining his Confederacy of the West scheme. Now, Davis was intrigued. It was certainly a bunch's plan, and there had been something precede for it. An explanation early in 1861 by John Robert Baylor, a native of Kentucky. His resume includes having been in the Indian fighter, rancher, member of the Texas State Legislature, and co-founding the White Men. The publication that stirred up ill feelings towards the Indians. Following the cession of the Texas in February 1861, Baylor, a lieutenant colonel, led a Justice Muster 2nd Texas Mounted Rifle, was sent to occupy the series of Texas forts along the western frontier that had been abandoned by the Union Army. His orders further allowed him to advance into Mexico to attack Union forts along the Rio Grande. His first target was Fort Fillmore. Leaving their camp in July 23rd of 1861, the Confederates arrived in the area the next night. The next day, Baylor led his battalion into Mesilla to cheer the population. The 2 days later, leaving a small force behind to guard the Fort Fillmore, its commander, Major Isaac Linden, led 380 Union troops to Mesilla. Once there, the Yankee officer demanded Baylor to surrender. When the Confederate colonel refused, Linden deployed his men into the skirmish line and opened fire with his mountain howitzers. When the infantry advance stalled, Linden ordered his 3 companies of mounted riflemen to charge the rebel line. Hey, Gibbo. The cavalry was more brave than smart. The riders were picked off by the Confederate riflemen, and the Union assault was unplus. Linder reframed his command, but decided to return to the fort. Now, the Confederate troops joined the army. Local citizens gave pursuit of Linder's troops. Hey, Rescue, how you doing? Pick up their pace and managed to reach the safe of their stockade walls. At the sunset the next day, Baylor ordered his artillery and cavalry to move into position to attack the fort. But when they were ready to do so, they found the fort abandoned. Linden destroyed the ammunition and supplies. When retreated northwest towards the fort, Stanton crossed the dry Oregon Mountains and San Augustine Pass. Many Union troops apparently had filled their canteens with the fort medical whiskey instead of the water. Hardly wise for the summertime march across the desert county. Who turned up? So, Randy, look who turned up. So where am I? Okay. During the pursuit, following that day, Linder dehydrated command, reduced to 100 men by time. It was overtaken by the Confederates, some of whom used what became known as Baylor Pass to intercept them. Linder was forced to surrender to St. Augustine Spring on July 27th. The Perch prisoners were paroled by Baylor, was able to refit his command with new Springfield rifles and captured equipment. On August 1st, Baylor declared the salvage of the Confederate Arizona Territory. He installed himself as the new territory military governor and declared martial law. However, the region did not last long because of his violent hatred of Indians. He exhausted his cavalry to attack. Now, perhaps Baylor believed the material law meant he was beyond approach. When the pre-Confederate Times published articles critical of him, Baylor sought out the editor Robert Kelly. Baylor beat him so badly the newspaperman died a few weeks later. The colonel was not charged with the crime. Apaches without provocation, ordering them to use all means to pursue the Apaches or any tribe to come in for the purpose of making peace. And when you get them together, kill all the grown Indians and take the children prisoner and sell them to defray the expense of killing the adult Indians. But the whiskey, such other goods as may be necessary for the Indians, I wonder, I will order vouchers given to cover the amount expense. Leave nothing undone to ensure success. Hey Judy, how you doing? When news of his order reached Jefferson Davis, he relieved Baylor as governor and revoked his commission as colonel. Baylor returned to military service at the Battle of Galveston in January 1863 as a private. He was soon elected to Calvary Confederate Congress. Putting aside his demotion by Davis, Baylor had been on to something. Having taken note of his success, General Sibley aimed to succeed. During his meeting with Davis, Sibley proposed a force of about 3,000 men who would lead through the Rio Grande Valley into New Mexico, where Fort Craig would be taken from the Yankees. Next to the capture would be Fort Union. The New Mexico, they're under Confederate control. Sibley would turn north and later west, bring Colorado and its silver and gold mines, Utah, Nevada, and eventually California into the Confederate fold. And that was not all. Such success could be doubled by conquering the Mexican state of Sonora and Chachilla. When all this was said and done, the Confederacy would be such stable size and propose enough appealing resources, the Great Britain and France would be pursued. What the hell is that? I have no idea. Not answering. Not answering it. To recognize, and there was a possibility that the Union would be so disheartening that it would be sued for peace before the rebel could be even more successful. One cannot blame Davis for being impressed. The plan glittered with a dowry. I did see, I can't see it, but something really bad. The problem was that Henry Sibley would be carrying it out, though far being the Confederate officer had not sobered him up any more than being a United States Army officer had. Unfortunately, a member of the rank and file like Leonard McNally, as well as civil superior, his alcohol would become evident until the campaign was underway. Gettysburg of the West. In 1861, the war barely 3 months old, General Sibley was in San Antonio pulling together what would be known sensibly as Sibley Brigade. Helping the effect was Colonel Thomas Greene, who was as sober as he was capable. He was also trusted by the Texas under his command, like the young McNally. Also born in Virginia, Greene was raised in Tennessee. He graduated from the University of Tennessee intending to have a law career. But when Texas Revolution began, Greene left to join the rebel. He arrived in Natchez. I can't see it. Hard to see. Natchez. There we go. In December 1835, enlisted in the army being formed by Sam Houston during the Battle of Sanjactu. Greene helped operate to frame twin sisters cannon, the famed twin sister cannon, the only artillery present to Houston's army. A few days after decisive victory, the wounded general rewarded Greene with commission as lieutenant. He was soon promoted and assigned in the aide-de-camp to General Thomas Rusk, but soon after that, with Mexican defeat, Greene reassigned and returned to Tennessee and to resume study law. Only 1 year later, he was back. The legislature of the new Republic of Texas granted large land to the deserving veterans of Revolutionary War. Greene led the claim to his Fayette County. Over the years, he did double duty as military man and farmer. Greene participated in John H. Moore 1840 campaign against the Comanches up to the Colorado River. And 2 years later, during the Vasquez War, he recognized Travis County volunteers and served as their captain. On the ill-fated Somerville expedition, Greene was its inspector general in the Mexican-American War. He reunited a company of Texas Rangers from LaGrange and served as their captain during the U.S. capture of Monterey. Suez, after Texas succeeded in early 1861, Greene was elected colonel of the 5th Texas Cavalry, which became part of the Civil Brigade. Colonel James Riley, a second deployment with the military experience command, the 4th Regiment. Colonel William Steele had the 7th Regiment. By 1861, the brigade of 3,200 soldiers were training for the campaign to conquer the West. To express the locals and boost morale, the 21st and Civil Brigade parade through San Antonio, noting the shining eyes of young ladies waving white handkerchiefs. Linder McNally had hundreds of other young men like him were finally marching off to war. Atlas, the campaign did not get off to encouraging start, but after 2 months of tough traveling into north headwinds and crossed the rough, uneven territory, the brigade arrival at Fort Bliss, where the deposed Lieutenant Baylor seasoned 2nd Regiment of Texas Mounted Rifle was incorporated into its ranks. When the new Confederate Army of New Mexico marched up the Rio Grande, intent to bypass the federal basin of Fort Craig, the bloody battle began. Private McNally, serving in Greene's command, saw his first military action. Unexpectedly, it was so successful one. On the evening of February 13th, 1862, General Civil Holder of the brigade marched 15 miles south of the Fort Craig, judging the fort to be strong to be taken by force. He deployed his troops in the line, and for the next 3 days, he tried to enter the Union troops to attack. But the fort cautiously commander, Colonel Edward Canby, refused to do so. In addition, the understanding Canby comes sense of Civil has unaware that he was outnumbered. His command had been beset by disease, including smallpox and measles, as well as distraction, and now number about 2,600 men. But the time the rather distilled Confederate Army of New Mexico approached his fort. Now, through the born of rise in Kentucky, Canby remains in the Union Army when the war began. After the end, he accepted or surrendered General Edmund Kirby Smith, which was not until January 2nd, 1865. Commander of the Pacific Northwest, in 1873, Canby was assassinated during a peace talks with the Modoc, who were refusing to move from their California homelands. That's where my great-grandfather used to live, in that county in California. he had the unwelcome distinction of being the only United States general to be killed during the Indian War. I'm going to stop there. The next page is page 136, and I'll read that one another time. So I might read the book of Sign later on too tonight. It might be late, but who knows? I'll do that. Hey, thanks for coming. Jinx, did you hear we're getting a seafood place who's taking over Hooters? So there's a seafood place is taking over Hooters. I heard that today. So yeah, I'm hearing there's going to be a seafood place who's taking over Hooters at the mall. So see what kind of seafood is it and stuff. So I'll touch you guys all there. Hey, thanks for coming. Oh, really? Huh, I didn't know that. Huh. Okay. So just have to wait and see, I guess. So hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it, and might talk to you later. Bye now.